Hey guys, it's me again, Barry with Barry's 8-Track and Classic Car Radio Repair. We got kind of a new thing going here. I've been having more and more guys ask me how they can add an 8-Track to their car system that has either a converted radio or a reproduction radio that has an aux input, and that would apply to a converted radio too, because they have aux inputs as well. Every radio I convert includes an aux input. The usual procedure is to find an 8-track on eBay and send it to me for conversion. Any eBay that you find on eBay, unless it's like serviced with warranty or refurbished by the seller, it's gonna need some kind of work. There's just they weren't designed to last 40, 50 years, and so your best car 8-track players are always the original classics, the Delco T200. In the T400, not so much a T200 anymore because it's getting pretty long in the tooth and it's developing in some cases irreparable trouble. But the T400, with both knobs to the left of the tape opening, that's a super performer. They're readily available. Only problem is they're pretty expensive. People tend to know how much they can get for their original classic 8-track players. So. A more attractive option is the smaller aftermarket 8-track players that were put out by like Sparkomatic, Kraco, Radio Shack put out a ton of them. And of course, now there's problems with those too. They generally don't get output on both sides. I've been buying these smaller aftermarket units up mainly for parts, but on the off chance that one can be salvageable, but they're generally not. They almost always have at least one channel out. Some of them don't have any audio at all, blown output sections. But the mechanisms are still serviceable, and they can be made to perform like new through a converted or reproduction radio that has these really powerful amplifiers. And to just add an 8-track to the aux input of radio makes a lot more sense from a connection standpoint too, because if you had a nice car radio system already and you wanted to add an 8-track player to it, you would need a way to, you can't connect both an 8-track player and a car radio to the same set of speakers for obvious reasons. You can't connect two outputs together, which is what you're effectively doing. So it becomes this hassle of, okay, so, how do I just add a pair of speakers just for the 8-track and, deal with the sound I can get of a couple small speakers, or do I go into some kind of elaborate splicing system where I install a dash-mounted switch to go between the radio and 8-track or stuff like that? But that's going to result in a converted radio and a reproduction radio. They have much more powerful amplifiers and they sound much better. So the original sound of these aftermarket 8-tracks compared to that's going to be, even if they worked fine, it's going to be really lame. I mean, these smaller aftermarket units basically sounded like huge transistor radios, huge pocket transistor radios. They didn't have any bass, no low mids. It was just shrill vocal range and guitar range mainly. So I've been on a quest, searching on eBay and in my service manuals for 8-track players that are small, have decent cosmetics, popular models that have easy mounting schemes, either in the form of a couple of built-in small brackets or comes with the bracket. And now these smaller aftermarket units, and I'll just show you two of them that I've got on hand. Well, three of them, two of the same model. These are the ones that I've recently purchased for the express purpose of converting them to work with a modern or with a converted or reproduction radio, and it's easy hookup. You got a hot and ground wire and the output that you feed to the radio's aux input, and you're done. And I can even add an aux input to the 8-track. So if this 8-track it uses up your radio's only aux input, you still have an aux input that you can plug into the 8-track, and whenever there's no tape inserted, whatever you plug into there will pass on to the radio. So you can still plug your MP3 player into this thing. So on the issue of finding suitable 8-track players, that are small and cheap, basically. And small and cheap does not mean they're not going to perform well when I get done with it. I've got a certain set of criteria that I use on each 8-track that I'm considering after looking at my service manual and making sure that a new motor, if necessary, would protrude out the bottom of a thin unit and not out the top. If a new motor, and I'll show you what I mean right here. Now, I really like to change the motor on any 8-track, especially an 8-track unit that I sell. I want to be able to put a 2-year warranty on it, and so that almost always means replacing the motor. Now, you're just not going to find this motor, in any kind of quantity. Even if you find it at all, you probably don't even know the part number. There were so many hundreds of different types of motors using these small aftermarket units that you're just not going to find. You're just not going to find them these days. So you have to go with a motor that you know is going to work. And in my case, that means my own adjustable speed motor, because different units require different RPM ratings. Most motors that you find do not have the RPM rating listed on it, on a label or anything. There's a part number maybe. So you have to be able to change the speed to match the required RPM of the unit, of course. Not just any motor. You can find a motor that looks exactly the same and it'll run at twice the speed. You have to have the correct RPM rating. So the only way to guarantee exact speed on these old animals is to go with a motor that you can adjust the speed on. So, and now unfortunately, these motors are obviously of a higher quality than these original little bitty motors, and so the new motor is going to stick out the bottom about 3/4 of an inch. You can see. The new motor will actually, you can see where this indentation is for the old motor. That I would cut a hole right there, and then the new motor sticks out the bottom where it's harmless because it doesn't interfere with with under dash mounting. The motor doesn't get in the way if you want to mount this thing under your dash. And another benefit of these small units, this thing's less than 5 inches long, or 5 inches wide. If you don't want to mess up your dash by drilling screw holes to mount this thing is small enough to rest inside the glove box. You can put enough wire on it to where as you open the glove box, you're facing the tape opening, so you can easily insert and remove tape. So that's that's a nice thing too. Now, the main criteria, as I've already mentioned, the unit has to be of such a construction that a new motor can protrude out the bottom where it won't be in the way. If it protrudes out the top, it could interfere with under dash mounting, unless you mount it like 3 inches below the dash so where that clears the motor. But generally, you're probably going to want a nice tight looking installation if you do want to mount it under your dash. So I'm only considering units that have the motor pulley and the flywheel on top so that a new motor can protrude out the bottom if it needs to. And most of your units I'm going to want to replace the motor on to put a 2-year warranty on. And to, even if the motor still runs, nearly all 8-track motors lose speed over the decades, and almost all of them also start generating noise through the audio circuit. So that's 2 reasons that I really have to replace the motor. It's such a high failure item that it's standard procedure on all Ford, Chrysler, and AMC 8-track units. It's part of the job to replace the motor. That's how high their failure rate is. And so motors in these little aftermarket units that have been sitting in somebody's garage for 40 years. They're going to be noisy and really crappy. So and so this one here so far is the one that I've settled on as my favorite unit to convert because it has a nice balance of everything that the customer would want. It's easy to mount if he wants. It's easy to put in the glove box if he wants. New motor can protrude out the bottom harmlessly. Simple operation. Then connection is just a hot and a ground wire, and then probably a set of RCA jacks to go to the radio's aux input, and that's all it is. And so, it's now half of this video is to to share with the customer which models these are, so that if he wants to, he can go on eBay and purchase his own model and send it to me for conversion. But if you buy it from me in the first place, it's a lot simpler. You pay a little bit less in the long run, and the unit is it arrives to your house guaranteed to perform well. It's none of these removed from working environment or worked when I pulled it back in 1972. This is 2-year warranty, works as if it was brand new. Through your converted radio, and it's a one-shot deal. You pay me, I send it to you, and that's it. And so now my second choice for these, and and incidentally, okay, now I'll share this model number. This is a realistic 12-1802, and this is the one that I most recommend, and this is the one that I'm going to try to keep in stock. More than the rest of them, because they just fit all the necessary criteria really well. And now I've got a couple more realistic models on the way, but I don't want to share those model numbers until I've actually done a test fitting and made sure that I can make these work, with optimum performance before I share it with the public. But for the moment, I do have at this time I have 3 units that can be made ready to go in a day. If you want to call me and say, yeah, I want to buy this unit, okay, I'll have it out to you next couple of days. And so I've got a few more realistic models I'm considering. I've also a couple of Munch units seem to be, according to my service manuals, seem to have the right mechanical internal structure to do my thing on. But I'm going to wait on those. Right now I'm just trying out a few at a time and coming up with some pretty decent ones. Now another nice choice here is one that you've seen probably if you peruse eBay for 8-track, you've seen this a million times. It's a Mini 8. Mini 8 stereo, very generic looking unit. Some of them are made by Ranger, some of them are made by Tenna, some are made by who knows who. But this is a nice simple unit, and it has the added benefit of a front panel head adjustment. If you are playing a tape that was recorded out of alignment, then you can fix that real quick. And then you've also got this cool, just like the Radio Shack ones, you've got a little track indicator to let you know what track you're on. Strictly a mechanical indicator. And then the head adjustment on both these models is easy to get to. If you ever had to get in there and make a head adjustment, it's not complicated at all. Just get in there with a regular screwdriver and give it a little tweak and see which way to go to make it sound better and to keep it from cross-talking. And of course that'll all be taken care of. Now this one has the capstan and flywheel, are the flywheel and the motor pulley on bottom, and it would normally not be workable because the motor's excess length would have to come out the top. But on this model, thankfully it's tall enough in the back that it will fit my new motor, and I still have to cut a hole out in the top, but it only protrudes out about, I'd say, less than 1/8 of an inch, so it's not going to get in the way of anything. And so this is a nice, solid, ruggedly constructed model. It's much heavier than this 12-1802 from Realistic. And so this just indicates, a heavier build quality. Internally, it's a nice unit. It's a reliable unit, and I already knew this one would be workable because I just finished doing a similar conversion for Nelmscape Studios on this. Not the identical model. His had some wheel controls that are at the top, but the chassis was the same, and you could see that all the access holes are in the same place and all that. So I already knew this one would be be a workable candidate. And then this is easy enough to make just a couple of mounting tabs for if the customer wants to mount it under the dash. And then these both have also a rear support nut in case you want to hook a little something onto that. So yeah, these will all be converted to provide optimum sound through a converted or reproduction radio they're usually much more powerful because both a converted radio and a modern reproduction radio offer the same options. If you if you feed its output into a fully ungrounded speaker system, meaning that each speaker has its own pair of plus and minus wires, with the minus also being hot, not grounded. So you have to have 8 actual speaker wires going to the speaker system. But with that arrangement, the power output jumps from about 4 watts to 22.5 watts per speaker for up to 4 speakers. So even if you're not a big fan of high volume, more power just sounds so much better. You get your bass. You can actually feel the bass. You get some nice low mid-range punch. The treble is more delicate and shimmering because it's not fighting the high mid-range for power. And it's so your 8-track is going to sound so much better through a reproduction or a converted radio than it did with its own output section. And besides that, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to hook into your system. Connect your hot and ground wires, plug it into the aux input. She's ready to go. It's that easy. So I'm not putting these on my website at the moment because I've found I've found that when I put something that's short term on my website and then I take it off, people are still calling for years. Somehow they find either pages that were archived or pages that somehow still connect to the website. So at this time, I'm only advertising these on my YouTube channel and not really making it. Not really putting it on the website so much until I'm a little bit more sure of what I want to offer, and that I want to offer that same thing for pretty much the rest of my days. So for the moment, it's just a YouTube announcement. So yep, I got these ready to go. If you got some customers, they send in their radio for conversion, they might want to add an 8-track. Just for fun. Didn't know that they could so easily, so it's a nice thing, a nice little accessory to add to a conversion. And also, anyone who would like to just go ahead and buy one that's already set up for that purpose, you can just give me a call, and my number is 928-533-9666. If you want to just call me, see what I have available. I can send you more pictures, stuff like that. So anyway, yes, from here on in, Barry's 8-track repair should have 8 tracks available that are designed to work directly with the radio's aux input. So thanks for watching and listening, and once again, my number is 928-533-9666. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.